Hello, Alvin. Hi, Nataliya. Thanks for coming. Yeah, hi.
Hi.
So ladies and gentlemen, I'm Ching-Hua, founder of DigiFashion Forum. We have an exceptional sessions lined up for you today with our co-host Nataliya Grimberg, founder of We Are Next, and then our speaker, Alvin Wang Graylin, Global VP of Corporate Development of HTC, and the special guest, Catherine D. Henry, Managing Principal of EPAM Systems. So today we will explore Alvin and Catherine's insight on how AI-powered XR will reshape the world in the next decade and how the Let me just quickly introduce him. So Alvin is a recognized technology pioneer and an entrepreneur, executive, and thought leader with more than 30 years of experience delivering innovative products in the AI, XR, and semiconductor industries. So he is the co-founder of Our Next Reality, which so exciting that we've been reading, and it's a very thorough and profound book that guides readers through the evolving of the emerging technologies. So his book, along with Catherine's book, which is called Virtual Natives, are essential reads for understanding the evolution of the emerging technologies and how Gen Alpha culture will impact the future of fashion. So I highly recommend these two books as they provide crucial insights the fashion industry needs to navigate to for the future. So please join me in welcoming Alvin, Catherine, and Nataliya for an enlightening conversation on the future of AI-powered AR and its impact on fashion. Thank you. Hi, Alvin.
Nice intro.
Yeah, so maybe we just let's quickly start from Nataliya, because Nataliya also prepare a lot of questions that would like to talk to you. So perhaps Nataliya, you could just start your question or introduce yourself a bit.
Absolutely. So I have read the books, and I, first of all, highly recommend reading them for anyone who is interested in the next evolution of Web3, but also our humanity in general. I am a Metaverse creator and a consultant. So I work with physical and Metaverse companies. So I connect the two worlds. And reading these two books was definitely enriching. And yes, I have a lot of questions to ask. So let's start with Alvin. In the Our Next Reality book that you wrote, you discuss the evolution of the internet into an AI-powered metaverse space. This transformation, I believe, leverages Gen AI to create and populate immersive digital worlds. And Gen AI can definitely design virtual environments, fashion items, and personalized avatars with remarkable detail, I would say, and creativity. And it offers customization and user engagement. And I can say that from my personal experience, because I'm a Metaverse creator. I have worked on the very first VR Metaverse Fashion Week, where we have populated a completely empty Metaverse space with a large variety of showrooms and avatars using AI technology as well. And I think that in the current fashion landscape, Gen AI is being used to develop virtual clothing collections, as well as enable designers to experiment with innovative styles, materials. But I want to know your perspective. How do you envision this AI transformation that impacts the fashion industry in the current world?
Sure. Yeah, I think everything you said, I agree with. But I would say that at least the perspectives I have, it goes well beyond the fashion industry, and I understand the audience here is more fashion related. But and I also want to emphasize that Gen AI is really just a phase in the evolution of AI, where over the next 5 to 15 years, this technology is going to mature and it's going to go through multiple phases from in the past was more procedural where we tell it what to do. Now over the last 10 years it's really become more self-learning, And then, generative AI phase is kind of the last, several years where it's really become more forefront because it's accessible to the public. But the next phase is going to be where AI becomes agentic, where it starts to actually be able to do things for you. And let's say, for instance, related to the fashion industry, if I want to buy a piece of clothing, instead of going and looking at a bunch of catalogs or having advertisers advertise to me, I would actually say, hey, I'm looking for let's say, new tennis shoes, and here's my size. And actually, you already know my size because I'm asking this AI who's working for me as my agent, who understands everything about my preferences, my color preferences, my what I, what sizes on what brands, and it would go out and actually find the best store with the best experience that's going to satisfy me as a customer. So this changes the relationship between the producer and the customer, where in between there was always a channel and there was always an advertiser that got between you. What will happen very soon is that we will be able to have a direct relationship with the customer, bypassing everything, where that agent will actually go out and find the best product that's the best quality at the best price, and then just give me a couple of choices, and I would say, yes, take option 1 or 2, right? And I think that changes the purchase experience. Now, the other thing that will actually change is that we will spend increasingly more and more time inside a virtual space, instead of right now, a lot of our time's in outside. And so we need fashion as a signaling device to signal status or to signal trendiness or whatever. Right. In the future, the signaling will also happen on the digital space, and in some cases, maybe more important to you what you wear or how you represent yourself in a virtual space than you do in the physical space, because you're going to expose to a lot more people in a virtual space than you would physically. And a lot of people are actually staying home more, but then meeting more people online. And so having a collection of I guess avatars or skins or clothing for your skins will be an important part of how you represent yourself. And in some ways, I think it's a better evolution, because a lot of us buy clothes that maybe we only wear once or twice, and it's just in our closet and takes up a lot of resources, and there's a lot of supply chain issues that go through all of that for you to wear it once or twice. It's really quite wasteful. Whereas now maybe digitally, if you want to switch to different representations, it's really a almost zero cost type of an option. So, but I think also longer term, we will start to really AI and the metaverse will create a much more egalitarian world around this, and we maybe will be less inclined to use fashion as a statement that separates us, or use as a signaling to show status, right? I think that's something that even in the digital world will be much more, I think, judged by what we're capable of doing versus how much money we have or how much status we have, and our goals for life may be changing. So I mean, we can go into more detail on that, but I want to give Catherine a chance also to talk, because I know she's got lots of great views on this area.
Well, thank you, Alvin. It's wonderful to see you, and my compliments on your book. As always, you bring deep insights to pretty much any topic from my experience with you over the years. I would agree with you 98%, with the exception of the last portion that you said. I think that, humans, going back to the Middle Ages, and even before then, the Renaissance times in Europe, they had something called sumptuary laws. And the sumptuary laws were imposed because rich traders, meaning the people who owned ships or were able to send ships internationally, or not internationally, but to across the seas to Asia, or to China and India, and come back with beautiful silks, etc. Suddenly it transformed the state of fashion in Europe. And suddenly, kings and queens were no longer the only people who had access to very elaborate, very beautiful fabrics. Suddenly, the rich merchant class was able to afford these same fabrics. And so they imposed something called sumptuary laws, which meant that you couldn't, quite be so flashy if you were above a certain station. It's just human nature to peacock. And, we've seen different iterations. And obviously, there are moments like the grunge era in the 90s when people don't want to do that. What I would say is that it's going to change it's going to still be the same online. What might change, though, is the utility, meaning that maybe it connotes certain capabilities rather than just physical status. In other words, I can be, being tall and thin. Alvin's a very tall, handsome guy. You notice him in every room, but not everybody is as tall, as handsome as Alvin in real life. So when you walk into a room, you can suddenly, copy Alvin and just put your face on top of them. So the physical stature or the physical properties that you have in the real world are going to be very different online. What will be different is, what are your creative capabilities? What else are you able to bring to the table? Some clothing items now with Web3 have digital, are digitized and have their own unique sound. So, what does it mean when you're able to recreate systems? And so what is the new swag? Maybe we're determined by our level of creativity in the future when AI is able to take on so much of that, those capabilities for us.
Absolutely. And jumping on that, I believe that these systems and advancements will only enhance our experience and also our creativity, albeit many think that artists are going to be replaced by AI. I definitely believe it's not true. It will offer more interactive and personalized journeys in the metaverse and in real life. And also, speaking of digital identities, I've read recent studies from Roblox, which said that over half of Roblox users actually prefer to style themselves in the metaverse than in real life, and their virtual style is more important for them in the virtual space. And based on your book, Catherine, where you have studied the advancements of specifically genalpha in the virtual space, do you have any comments maybe with how their digital skills, which are, let's face it, are a bit higher than ours, how these digital skills help them adapt and shape the fashion industry?
Yeah, sure. I mean, many studies have shown that what we wear in the real world it affects our psyche. In other words, one study in particular showed that participants who wore white coats felt as though they were more professional when they were told that this is a doctor's coat, as opposed to when they were told it's a painter's coat. And so their habits, their attitudes shifted depending on the outfit that they were given and the purpose for which this outfit was suited towards. And so one of the things that we found is that clothes really do make the man, as the old adage goes. And the same thing is online. And again, multiple studies show that the environments affect how people act with each other. And so these things, there's a lot of psychology at play with respect to what happens in digital environments. And so we need to be really mindful about, thinking about trying to maximize the experience in a positive way, as opposed to creating false need for competition. How can we spark joy? How can we give people, how can we help them achieve a higher sense of themselves, while at the same time remembering this is all a virtual space and it's effectively a game? So I would say by giving these clothes new properties, let's just say you're able to fly, or you're able to, you can, sort of sparkle with these clothes, and each one has an individual property. We can think about creating magical moments of delight and joy. And if we can really think of it that way, as opposed to recreating some of the competitive aspects that we have in the real world, I think that we're building a more positive and much more fun and interactive future.
I definitely love this idea, especially in terms of, I really hope that our real world will stay beautiful, but we will not escape to the virtual world to forget about the real world, only to enhance and make it more beautiful and fun. And continuing on that.
Also, just to maybe just to add on to that point a little bit, and I think this actually long term could be a better thing for mental health of our young people, because right now there's so much that they try to mimic what they see on Instagram or TikTok, and it's very difficult for you to physically change yourself to those ratios or whatever. But if we can change the image that we want to, I guess, represent ourselves in any way, then we can feel much better about ourselves, as what Catherine says, and I think that could help to solve some of this mental health epidemic that we really have globally, and a lot of it is being induced by the competition that is seen between people because of the social psychology of online media today, and the ability for you to be represented now by a virtual version allows everybody to gain a lot more confidence, and I think that's a real positive thing.
Absolutely. Alvin, you also in your book discussed the shift from passive consumption to active participation. How will this change the consumer experience in the fashion industry and beyond, and our online presence in general?
Yeah, I mean, I think I talked a little bit about that earlier, where, before we're really being fed to, what is the fashion trend of this season, and we would essentially consume what's being created. I think very soon every person can be a designer, right? I think that's the beauty, is that we will actually create designs that we feel represent ourselves or particular feeling. And if we want to, anybody can then sell those virtual versions of their virtual fashions to anybody in the world. And I think we will find there's a lot of creative designers out there that was never found because they were doing something else, because they didn't have access to a channel or to a marketing medium to help promote them. So I think we will get to a new fashion renaissance very soon, because there will be a new generation of designers that will have access to a global platform, and that's I think that's quite exciting.
Yes, I really like this quote by Catherine Hackle, who said that maybe the next Coco Chanel is this 12-year-old girl in India that's designing clothes for Roblox. And it's all about the next generation that are going to shape the future. And Catherine, because you have focused solely on that, and you probably know everything about genalpha and their purchasing behavior, and those who are already accustomed to interactive digital environments, what do you think how it will shift the influence of that in the future?
Yes, well, as I pointed out in my presentation, that it's going to be very important for brands to consider how they are going to allow people to interact with their IP, because people are going to do it anyway. And it's not just retail. This is a broader issue for every single brand, whether it's a KFC to pharmacies to whatever, McDonald's or anything in the world. You'll see there are a lot of these different spaces are recreated already in metaverse worlds. So if you were to go into, say, Roblox or into VR chat, you'll find that fans of the brand have recreated it. And they're very, very different experiences than what you would experience in the real world. And some of them, they might be a send up, and some of them could be Shrek worlds. So it's not just IP in entertainment, and any kind of brand or any form of entertainment that you can imagine has been recreated in some form already in these metaverse worlds, and they're very hard to monitor. And so we have to give our fans of our brands license to play with that. And so how do we do that in such a way that doesn't undermine the image that we've so carefully crafted? The question is really how much you can control it. I'm not sure you can, but I think that if you give them the tools and reward them, this is a much healthier relationship over time, because young people expect reciprocity. One of the key phrases that I always think about is when young people say, I feel like I should be able to, and it really shows their expectation of having agency in whatever they do. They feel like they should be able to manipulate your brand and customize it, because it's a form of recognition and passion. You don't spend a lot of time recreating something you don't like. You do it because you really enjoy it. So how can we reward them for engagement? And I think that's ultimately it, is engagement. And again, through positive reinforcement. If there's one thing we learned from Web 2.0, is that negative reinforcement or creating false competition or addictive behaviors is not the way forward. Think about creating moments of joy, sparking positive interactions, and rewarding people, not by sitting there for hours and clicking, but really applying their creativity and their passion in a positive way and rewarding them with things that people appreciate, not just pennies that they have to earn over time.
Yes, yes, definitely. Well, talking about this so-called co-creation that we are building with in the industry and also for the design. Actually, there are lots of discussion that how or whether AI will take over my job or something, and especially generative AI is so powerful that for design aspect that is so easy to just replace loads of ideas and then present a lot of more ideas. So basically, for the fashion education, that's from the traditional education, that basically we just teach the designers all these craftsmanship, handmade sewing, all this stuff. But then when AI is coming up, it's everywhere in our life, then whether all these skills we also have to learn, but then there's the job disruptions, especially for the junior staff, because they probably are not familiar with this. But this is what I want to just ask Alvin, as a son of two artists. So how do you foresee the role of education evolving to equip future professionals with the skills needed for a metaverse-centric fashion industry then?
Yeah, so I think you make an excellent point. In fact, that there's two sides to this discussion. One is what happens to the big brands, and do they need to hire so many people anymore? And I think not just for the fashion industry, but also for almost every creative industry and every kind of cognitive labor industry, probably the answer is not that many, or a lot less. Right. And particularly the junior staff will probably be the first ones to go, because the senior people are there to come up with the big ideas and to choose what the AI will provide for them. Now, so I think there can definitely be a lot of cost advantages to the large companies. Now, but if you look at it from the junior designer or the indie designer perspective, I think this actually empowers them the other way, where before you needed to, go through a very long ladder to get to a point where you can actually make decisions and create products that will go out to the public. Now you can do it digitally without that entire supply chain, and create your own products to go to market almost instantly. So it empowers the truly creative people that has ideas that can appeal to a large group to become visible very quickly, and to have the ability to actually productize. So in both ways, it's helping both sides of that equation to become more successful for people who want to take initiative and utilize the technology properly. But if you're just one of the average person that doesn't want to work that hard, or doesn't want to, don't have a kind of unique ideas, then you're probably in trouble, and you may want to look for a different craft. Because honestly, if just like if you're a graphics designer today that just makes logos, AI will do those logos instantly and give you 10 versions to the customer. It's very difficult to do those type of jobs. So I think that's something that you need to think about, depending on what stage in the career you are of this space. But in any case, education is definitely the key. No matter which stage you are, you need to keep learning and keep educating yourself how to use these tools and where these tools are going. And then also, maybe if you find that, hey, I'm not as creative as I thought I was, maybe there are other areas where you actually are more suited for, because I think everybody has special gifts that they're given, and sometimes we just don't have an opportunity to find them because we went on a certain path. In fact, Picasso said something that really spoke to me, and he said that the meaning of life is to find your gift, and the purpose of life is to give it away, right? And I think that's important, the last part particularly, because to give it away means that you're not trying to make money from it. You're not trying to become famous. I mean, you're trying to get as many people as possible to be benefited from that gift. And if that gift is to be an amazing designer, then go do that. If that gift is to be an amazing teacher, go do that. Or if that gift is to be a AI researcher, then go do that. But everybody has something that they can provide to the world. We should be thinking about how do we move from an occupation focused mindset to a vocational focused mindset, because occupation, the root word is occupational, which is to occupy time. So you're just trading your time for money as a career. Whereas we should think about vocation, which right now is seen as a bad word because it's seen as like lower class work. But the reality is that if you look at the root word of vocation is vocational, which is to be called, a calling, right? And if you can find your calling, it's something that you have passion for, and it's something that will drive you throughout your life. So if we can all find that calling, which is really the gift that Picasso was talking about, I think we move to that, and that is how people have been doing crafts and arts and culture really for millennia. And we've only owned it last few hundred years started to do this work for by hours and by roles. Before, we used to get into a particular craft and focus on it for entire life. And you have an apprenticeship that you work with a master for 7-10 years before you actually go on and do your own thing. So I think this new evolution or revolution with AI and with the opportunity to create a global marketplace with the metaverse will enable a new renaissance for the fashion industry and for a lot of other industries. So I'm very hopeful for the artists in the world, because I think this will actually unleash them to be able to fully utilize the talents they have, instead of being suppressed by the system that they're in.
Yeah, definitely. Because, with so basically with this learning yourself, but also learning from others and then learning together is really crucial. But now, with the all these teaching systems that we probably also have to learn from those young generations, because of course we learn from our mentors. But what if our mentors can't really provide something we want? Then how can we just find ourselves to reach what we really want? And of course, some people want to just stick on their craftsmanship, and then stick on the something that they really want to use their hands, to draw, or to produce their garments. But with the other part of group, that's they have the skill, the technological skills that can help or can collaborate with those people, then perhaps we can also create something different as well. And I also want to, talking about this, because I want to ask Catherine, because, for the virtual natives, the youngsters, basically to them, they were born in digital lives. So basically for all these digital skills are not really difficult to approach, and then they probably are just so naturally learn from it. And so in education aspects, how we can just let those generations understand that, okay, you are good at digital, but then there's a culture behind it in fashion. There's a history behind fashion, and then there is a long process of the fashion industry. Then how can we just implement all this for the younger generation in terms of education?
Well, I mean, there are two ways to look at it. I mean, one way is to say that there are a lot of tools that are available to them online if they want to learn about the history of fashion, whether it's from a cultural aspect, or even if they're looking at specific couturiers of the past. So they can really inform themselves and educate themselves on these historical figures in a way that we never could before, because it just simply wasn't accessible to the extent that it is today. What I would say, however, is that On the other hand, they also have creative tools that enable them to recreate things completely, which is why we chose to call the book Virtual Natives, because digital implies your hands, and it's always hands first, and you're interacting with the computer, and now we're in a space where we are increasingly being able to go without controllers even in virtual spaces. And so we're thinking, and our thinking has also evolved so that the process of creation has become virtualized as well. And so when we think about the future workflows and the way that we communicate, all of that is changing, and that's something that the younger generations are that they're driving effectively. When it comes to fashion, I would say that they don't necessarily have to follow the rules. That's not what this generation does. They acknowledge that the system, such as it is, doesn't necessarily work the way it's supposed to, meaning that if I bide my time, if I follow the rules, I won't necessarily be successful. And so as a result, young people are taking it into their own hands to create content, and they do so constantly. They do whatever, through iteration, of course, because they discover what they're really excited about. And then they start to put it online, and they've seen that their peers have had tremendous success. We've seen some, 87% of young people under 20 say that the top profession that they'd like to have is a YouTuber. So this is certainly an aspirational space. And I think that looking at indie companies like Artifact, which created digital sneakers, here's a digital company that's just an upstart recreating fashion, breaking the mold. And then they got purchased by Nike. So to Alvin's point, when you create something that's out of your own passion, then the recognition can follow. And we're talking not necessarily about being recognized by these massive corporations. Even if you get enough of your peers to follow you and to reward you, then you can be very successful. So the rules of the game are changing, and I'm not necessarily sure that our education needs to follow that, but it needs to understand that education has to be modular. People are going to pick up the skills that they need when they need them. They don't necessarily want to follow a curriculum that is deeply entrenched in some of the behaviors and thinking of the past, when so much of the tools that they require today are dramatically different. So I would suggest that actually it's education that needs to adapt to the times, rather than young people having to retrofit themselves into trying to adopt to that system and those thought processes and workflows.
Yeah, actually, let me add a point to that. I agree that education actually needs to be changed, because our entire system has been built around the Industrial Revolution, where we're putting people in a classroom to simulate a factory, right? And particularly for the creative field, everybody thinks in different ways, and we need to have personalized education. Where I think this becomes much more possible now that we have AI agents. That if it's allowed to have information about who we are and what we're doing. If you're wearing glasses like these that have microphones and cameras and soon displays on them, you will be able to have a one-to-one tutor experience that is, I mentioned the apprenticeship, right? Before, you would apprentice a physical human master who has been doing the craft for a long time. I think now we will start getting into self-apprenticeship, where this AI actually helps you become a better version of yourself by bringing out all the information that's available in the world throughout history, because it has all that accessible, but then personalize it to whatever you're looking at, whatever you're thinking about, whatever you have questions on. And that type of learning will actually happen much faster than it has in the past, and will bring a much higher quality of learning and retention and understanding than we've ever had in the past. Because the current education system is all about grades and tests, and people just, once they pass that test, they forget 90% of what they're doing like a week later, right? So we need to get people to focus on real learning and real understanding, versus passing tests and having grades to then go show something to somebody else, right? So that system needs to be adjusted, and I completely agree with what Catherine's saying. I've known Catherine for a while, and I've read her book before it came out, and I think it's a highly recommended for people who want to understand how young people are thinking about what's coming out in the world. So,
Thank you. It's going to be available in Mandarin soon, in Chinese soon.
All right,
Oh,
perfect.
awesome. Yeah, well, thank you both. I have a question that from the fashion industry and the supply chain because we will talk about design, we'll talk about the creativities, but then the fundamental of the whole value chain actually will be supported by the supply chain. And there's the question is that Alvin, in your book you mentioned that the more people spend time in the metaverse, and people will reduce more consumptions. So it sounds interesting because it sounds like there would be a reduction of production because people don't consume anymore, so the supply chain probably won't have much order anymore. But on the other hand, if AI powered design tools and everyone can be a designer or everyone can easily to design a garment with those tools, then maybe for the supply chain, they can just train the data and then from the consumers and quickly just adopt the production and then design themselves. So perhaps the in terms of virtual fitting as well, all these AI powered XRs will just improve a better custom fitting. Then maybe towards more like on-demand manufacturing perspective. So could it be an opportunity for the supply chain to go up the value chain? And then what kind of social impact will we have?
And I think, in some places we're already having, relatively fast fashion, but it's still one to many. But very soon it will be a one-to-one fashion. And if whoever in the supply chain process can adapt to that type of flexibility and that could definitely separate them from other companies. Because I think a lot of people will not want to be dictated to in terms of what they perceive to represent themselves. So it's an opportunity for companies that are adaptable.
Okay, so we have a question from the audience. So let me have a look. So we have a question from the texture of materials is important in fashion and clothing. So are you aware of any efforts to convey the haptic aspect of the physical fabric? Wow, it's very specific.
So I know there are a number of haptic type both fixed devices where you can feel texture, as well as using things like ultrasound, as well as gloves. But I think it's going to be a while before we have true haptic representation for fine grain materials. I was actually just talking to a startup about a week ago, and they were doing more material representation in virtual world. So you could essentially say whatever type of fabric, it will represent visually what it would look like, how it would flow, and have it be dynamic. And I think, from a visual representation, that will happen fairly quickly, and then the fabric will look super natural. Right now, it's just like hair and fabric are very difficult for virtual graphics, but that's going to change with some of these new breakthroughs that are coming out. So yeah, but I think the texture side is something that's going to be a challenge in the virtual world. But that's also more opportunity for people why they want to buy the physical one, because that's something that they cannot get in a virtual marketplace.
Yeah,
I actually have
definitely.
a personal experience in haptics as I was writing my MBA thesis when creating a virtual showroom with implementation of haptics. Have worked together with Tesla Suit, which is a company that creates full body tracking haptic suits. And they are also developing Tesla gloves, which are basically the gloves that will let you feel the space, textures, and also the shape of the object in the metaverse. But because fashion isn't really the first way to use those advanced technologies. As Alvin mentioned, it will take a while for us to go into a virtual showroom to feel the texture of the fabrics. But I have tried some of the technologies. They already are impressive. So I think we are maybe 3 years ahead of where we might be leading in the future. And you already can go into, for instance, a virtual showroom that we have built with one of the brands. You can feel the wind on the body when you're walking outside of the showroom. So it's going to be very immersive very soon, and I can't wait.
I feel like you would be able to simulate the feeling of a certain fabric. In other words, the coolness of a linen or the warmth of a cashmere sweater with just say a very thin veneer, which then can replicate that, the feeling of having that type of garment, and at the same time externally through nanoparticles or something similar, be able to change the look of the external texture. So I think what we'll have is multimodal or multi-use garments that can serve as with different purposes and have different technological properties that will enable us to convert from one look to another or one sensation to another.
Yeah,
I think if you're talking about physically changing the appearance, there are definitely technologies that are already doing that. But trying to change the material makeup dynamically, I think we're the kind of nanotechnology is not there yet. So
no. In terms of the surface treatment, that's what I meant.
Yeah.
Because
yeah. Okay, fantastic. Wow, so nice that we have all these insightful sharings. Yeah, today we just talk a lot of topics like, from digital identities to education to supply chain, and even, all these fabric haptics feelings and touch and all this. And we're really, really looking forward, AI technology can just improve for all. And so I think today we are just up to now, and thank you for your time and then for sharing your insights. And it was really a nice, fantastic conversations, and everyone just share all our thoughts and insights. And I really hope that we will have more time, but hopefully next time we can just have another time with Alvin and Catherine. And for today, we just thank you for all, and we'll see you next time then.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
guys.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. It's been a pleasure.
Bye.
Bye.
See you in the metaverse.